what is the most overrated Rodgers and Hammerstein show?
I say South Pacific
Please like and subscribe.
because I don't believe the situation. I don't believe that you ask a woman to marry you without telling the woman that she's going to be a stepmother to two children. I'm not talking about Polynesian. I'm talking about the stepmother to two children. The other thing, when the military men call him in to do a job for them, they tell us, they're talking to each other and they say, he has two kids. Okay. He comes in and he says, no, I don't want to do it. And they say, why? Why? Because you're in love with that girl? And he says, yes, yes, I love that girl. Why don't the kids come up? I mean, if he were to say, I have two kids at home, I can't take the risk, everybody has to say, we understand. I mean, you're the father of two kids. There's no mother. My God, you cannot possibly argue with a guy who's a single father. You cannot ask him to do a job like that or force him to, or try to persuade him to do it when you know that there's so much at stake. It's a dangerous thing. He could get killed. And what happens to those two orphan kids? It's a terrible thing to ask him to do. But the fact is, when they ask him to do it, they use as the example of the falling in love with the girl. No, that's not the significant thing here. And it's really quite terrible that he won't fess up to her. As a result of that, we have to wonder a great deal about him. Since he's so circumspect, since he keeps his cards so close to his vest, is he telling us the truth when he says, when I killed the man, he was a bully and he was a terrible man and everybody in town was glad I did it? Well, maybe that's true. Or maybe as time goes on, he's picked up that story and decided this is the best way to explain it. My point is, I don't trust him anymore, given the fact that he's not coming clean to Nellie at the outset.
Join our free weekly Broadway appreciation classes at thebroadwaymaven.com.
So I think it's really a terrible show for that reason. I think they got away with murder. I think the main reason South Pacific succeeded was because it was so close after the war, and so many people had lived through the war. And this was a way of reminding people of both the tragedies and the triumphs of the war. I mean, Cable dies, but we do get the impression that we know that how the war turned out by 1949, and 4 years earlier it ended, and it ended with triumph. But the fact remains, I think that was the one thing that really put South Pacific across. And notice that for years, there were no Broadway revivals. I mean, until that most recent one, which probably was about 10 years ago now, but there were no Broadway revivals. There was a Broadway revival of Flower Drum Song before there was a South Pacific, and that wasn't a big hit. I mean, and meanwhile, Oklahoma, Carousel, King and I, they got revivals. Why didn't South Pacific? What happened? I mean, people, a lot of people say, well, there wasn't a Sound of Music revival for 40 years. Yeah, but that's attributed to the fact that the movie was so popular. The thing was, the South Pacific movie was not that popular because it was so bizarre in the way that they used the color filters for songs. And that was a detriment. But the point is, no South Pacific revival for all that period of time. Don't forget, South Pacific's 10 years older than Sound of Music, which allowed for 10 more years of arid production. So I really do question South Pacific's worth in the musical theater canon. I really do consider it the most overrated hit of all time.
And here's another video I think you'll like.